What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Ant Hill Show. I'm Ant, of course. This is Jay Hill, and we're absolutely excited because guess what?
It's finally
It's
game
week. Jay Hill was so excited he got here early. Everyone was excited to get into this episode. I know we are. And we got a lot of really cool topics, some of them involving, of course, the 53 man, how it was built, and how the 49ers are going to use that against the Bears, but very heavy on 49ers versus Bears. Jason,
Actual
tangible football coming our way on Sunday. I can't freaking wait.
So Scott, can't wait.
So Jason, the 49ers built their 53-man roster since the last time that we had a conversation.
Yes.
And the way that they built it is very interesting. And one thing that was clear, and you can see it, on the screen next to us, 49ers light in the secondary. They keep 3 safeties, of course, because they kept 4, but then Jimmy Ward goes on the IR. And then on the cornerback position, they only keep 5. They don't have a 6th guy, which that's the norm, right? 6 guys for the 49ers in the secondary. What did you think about the way the 49ers built the secondary overall? And what's going to happen with that safety position? Who's coming up from the practice squad? We know Dante Johnson and Tayshaun Gibson are there. Oh, and my guy, Taylor Hawkins.
The obvious fit, the obvious choice, the obvious answer is Dante, and I'd be surprised if it's not him. He's got the experience, he knows the scheme, all that kind of stuff. I think part of the lightness of the secondary goes to us keeping 3 quarterbacks. That's probably where they probably came down to either Brock Purdy or an extra DB. Is my suspicion. If you look at every other position, the only one that seems to be shorted by that extra quarterback, thanks Jimmy, is the DBs.
I'm going to push back a little bit, and here's why. And we're going to get into it a little bit more later. But they have 10 offensive linemen on the active roster too. Last year they kept 8. So that's a influx of 2 players compared to last year, which could be 1 cornerback and 1 safety. So it might not actually be the quarterback, even though that is a position they kept extra at. It might be the easy one, Jason, the cherry pick quarterback situation. But I think that there's more to it because they did keep at other areas. And I think a lot of the reason they kept at the linemen, we'll get into that in a second, was because of Daniel Brunskill and Mike McGlinchey question mark. Yeah. But the secondary, they have the guys on the practice squad. If you're able to move those guys to the practice squad and still elevate them when it's time for the games, you might as well do that. Yep. They needed to make sure Jimmy Ward was on the active 53, of course, after cut day. Then they could get him to the IR and he could still come back. They have a 6th spot potentially available for Jason Verrett when he comes back after 4, but they'll probably elevate somebody at the cornerback position too. But who is that going to be? Or could it just be Dante Johnson comes in and fills both roles?
I think Dante is the kind of the jack of all trades guy here. He can play almost really any spot, and he has at some point in the last 4 or 5 years. So I think they value his flexibility enough to where it gives them other options, like keeping an extra lineman too. So.
Yeah, I think so. And, Tayshaun Gibson is on this roster, but I think it makes sense to have him practice longer, get in better football conditioning, and then be available later if you need him.
Yeah.
So I think he's one guy they're kind of stashing and storing for later, and Dante Johnson can play a multitude of positions. I mean, if you needed him, he could play the nickel. If you needed him to play free safety, he could do it. Yep. I just think there's so much versatility there. But
smart player.
Another position that was interesting, Jason, and we kind of got into this a little bit, but 4 tight ends, 4 big running backs, 10 offensive linemen. What does this signal to you about the 49ers and what they plan to do in 2022? And that was 5 big running backs until Trey Sermon, of course, got moved so they could get another offensive lineman in there.
It sounds like they want Trey to throw the ball about 20 to 22, 23 times a game. Is what that basically means.
Yeah, I would argue they probably wanted under 20.
It might be that even.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's going to be, around that. I think that's what they want. I think this signaled the fact they brought back Tyler Kroft to go with the other tight ends, meaning they have 3 very capable blockers, and then Ross Dwelley, who can add something in the receiving game. And then the running backs, all of them are big, physical. I think everyone's excited about Jordan Mason and what he provides for this football team. There's going to be question marks about who is the third down back? Is it Jeff Wilson Jr.? Is Elijah Mitchell? Is a combination of both? And also, who's coming in on 3rd and short, 4th and short to get those yardage? Will it be one of those 2 that I named first? Will it be TDP who handle it primarily through practice, through training camp? or will it be Jordan freaking Mason, who just seems to run people over and gets vertical at as soon as he can?
I think the first 3 or 4 games, honestly, we'll see, because it might be kind of a trial and error, kind of a let's see how you do. Oh, not good enough. Okay, now it's your turn. Not bad. Oh, there. And so I would guess by October we'll see kind of who our short down back will be, because I'm not sure they know yet.
Yeah, maybe not. And I think that the way that they're designing this team is to run the ball 35 to 40 times a game. Mike McDaniel in Miami came out and said, "Hey, we're going to run the ball 30 plus times a game."
Did.
And I think that that's what Kyle Shanahan and what is going to do. And whenever you put somebody like Chris Furster in control of your run game, and he's an offensive line guy, guess what you're doing? Loading up. This is what I said when he was in Miami. This was his MO.
Yep.
3 tight ends, load up and run people over. And then all of a sudden he comes, he's going to become the run game coordinator here. I don't think anything changes. You throw in the fact you have Anthony Lynn involved as well. This run game is going to get after people. I was excited about that. The 10 offensive linemen, though, caught me, even though 4 tight ends caught me by surprise, 10 offensive linemen way caught me off surprise, because I had 9, because you needed to keep Nick Zakelj.
Yes.
He's your future center. John Lynch came out and said it pretty much. They see that in his future. But a 10th guy, nobody's really rolling with 10 offensive linemen, especially you're able to elevate players when you elevate an offensive lineman. So to get Dante Johnson elevated to the roster, they're going to have to elevate another offensive lineman. That's 11 potential offensive linemen that are, could be available. Of course, we know that's not how many are going to dress. Nick Zakelj ain't going to dress. There'll be a couple other guys, but I just thought that was very interesting.
Does this make you think that they might not be so necessarily convinced on who they want to go with yet? Because remember last show we talked about the report of them trying to acquire more interior guys?
I think when it comes down to it, what they're worried about is Daniel Brunskill and Mike McGlinchey. Brunskill's not cleared to play. And if Brunskill's not playing, you need guys to be that 6th offensive lineman. They've got Colton McKivitz, of course. But if Brunskill's not playing, you're not rolling out Nick Zakelj if something happens to Jake Brendel. So that means you would have to have Keaton Sutherland up there, or they bring the new guy and he can handle it as well. 5 position versatility. So I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to ensure themselves, because if they have to, they'll put Daniel Brunskill on the IR. I think they're hoping he's going to be ready to go, and he's going to be and he's going to be good. But with a hamstring, he might be practicing during the week, and then all of a sudden you get to game time and he's just not ready. He can't go full.
It's still tight.
Yeah, so I think those question marks made them kind of load up. I think they always planned on 9 because of Zakelj.
Yep.
But now it made them load an extra guy because of it.
Yeah, makes sense though.
Yeah, I think so. And because of that, Jason, we got to talk about the 49ers roster rank overall. Now that we've seen the 53, in fact, we've seen 70, because that's how many they have between the 53-man roster, the practice squad, because we got old Alfredo Gutierrez, part of the international exchange program.
Viva Mexico.
Yeah, so he doesn't count against the roster size, so that's good for the Niners. They get to keep an extra guy for the practice squad, or I don't think he would be around. But
no, I don't think so
really good guy, and has improved drastically. I mean, he's gotten a lot better.
It's not saying much though.
Well, I mean,
from where he was.
No, it's saying a lot, because some guys just never have that opportunity. But
he still doesn't look like he's going to be anyone that we can ever rely on for anything. So
no.
Other than just sell more jerseys.
No, he's a good guy who's going to help in practice. Everyone likes him. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Jimmy G. Yeah.
But where do you think this 49ers offensive roster, or I'm sorry, not offensive, but the entire team roster ranks compared to the rest of the NFL?
Really, this is one of those things where you hate to sound homerish, but they are at worst the 3rd or 4th best roster in the sport. I could see them being top 2. Like the amount of talent and just it's scary. Like, actually look at other people's roster objectively, and our guys are loaded. It's if they had a quarterback that had experience and was top 10 already, they'd be the clear Vegas favorites.
Yeah, I mean,
I've heard that from multiple guys who bet a lot. That literally the only thing stopping them from being the odds-on favorite is people aren't sure about Trey yet.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. The roster's really good, and actually, I did a 5 big takeaways from the 53-man roster, which you haven't watched. Go check that out over on the channel. But One of the things I said was this roster is absolutely stacked. You can see it in the way that teams were going out and pouncing and claiming 49ers players. I mean, JaMychal Hasty, when you look at it, he was the 6th tailback, and he
Yes.
got claimed right away.
Within
Trey
like
Sermon was the
an
5th,
hour.
and he got claimed. So, I mean, these guys are valued around the league, and I think that goes to show what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are building here. Now, a lot of people talk about their misses or their positions. They're worried about them on the interior offensive line, and those are legitimate, conversations to have because this offensive line is young, and anytime there's young, like you brought up about Trey Lance, youngsters, then you have question marks about if they're going to be able to fulfill, their potential, and that's what it is. Potential right now, it's unknown. But I think everyone's excited about what they've seen from Burford so far and the consistency from Banks. I know after the Texans game, people started trying to kind of attack that a little bit. But Banks, I thought, has been consistent throughout the preseason and training camp. I'm curious what happens when they start scheming up offense as well, how much pressure that'll take off this offensive line.
It absolutely will.
So top 3, I think, is very legitimate. I don't see any reason why they can't, even though there are some really good rosters around the league, including the Philadelphia Eagles, who have absolutely been stacking their roster as well.
Eagles are up there. I think the top 3 to me right now, in no particular order, are the Bills, the Chargers, and us. Are to me the one where you're like, okay, they got players at all 3 levels on offense and defense, and just tons of speed. But like with the Chargers, obviously they have the quarterback, and it was beyond proven. But their issue is their head coach is a nut, and that's what might hold them back too.
Yeah, I mean, decisions, right? A lot of the things that happen are going to be decisions in game,
which is terrible
execution. That's the thing. When you're looking at these rosters, it's all on paper right now. They have to go out there and prove it. And every single one of them, even though they have tremendous advantages, they have disadvantages as well. But I think you're right, Jason. They're one of the top ones. But now let's get into it. The main event, of course, 49ers versus Bears. So we're going to have some nice topics to go over about this. But first off, Jason, what are your highlights? What are you thinking about these 49ers versus Bears? Like, what's standing out to you about this matchup? They played it last year at Halloween, but it's going to be a little bit different. Matt Nagy's gone. Insert Matt Eberflus. They just changed the last name, changed that it's an offensive coordinator to a defensive coordinator.
More hair and a bigger gap, too.
So what are you expecting from this game, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm really curious because he was the Colts coordinator, so I'm curious to see the progression that they've been able to give Justin. I'm a little concerned for him that they have no one to throw to. They don't really have any good running backs, and their line's shaky. Like, they do have a really good tight end who we need to be aware of at all times. But other than that team is just they're bad.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up a few names, and then you kind of give me an instant response. David Montgomery
didn't scare me.
Okay, so you said you like Cole Kmet.
I do. I like Cole a lot.
And then here we go. Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
Okay, because Darnell Mooney is one of the guys that I was high on when he came out of the draft a couple of years ago. I thought he was a guy that had late round potential to be something big. I think he is a guy that's got a lot of ability. Do I think he's going to be as good as last year when they had Allen Robinson? Robinson took all the attention and made it easier on these guys. I think this is kind of that effect that we've seen from certain guys like Smith-Schuster.
Because you're a good number 2 does not mean that you're a number 1.
Right. Juju with Antonio Brown,
was
fantastic.
A stud.
Juju without Antonio Brown. Hello, third receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Let's see how CeeDee Lamb does this year too.
There you go. Things change.
Lots of guys are great twos.
When the big dog's not there, how do you handle it?
And that's why I'm not worried about him, because he was always the guy that, oh no, gotta stop him. Oh, that guy got us.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's that, like, I don't buy that stuff like that. And until you prove that you can go from being a 2 to a 1, but he never had that, and he's not going to happen against us. So
yeah, one thing I think is interesting too is the Chicago Bears claimed, I think it was like 6 players off waivers.
Yes, which was scary.
Yeah, anytime you claim guys off waivers, those guys have to be on your 53, which means
their roster.
They thought guys like Alex Leatherwood was better, on their offensive line than other guys, and Leatherwood. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have had Leatherwood come in and work out for us. and see where he's at, because I
Yeah.
do think in the right system, right, he could play guard in this league.
As a depth guy, he'd be nice.
he's fallen into the problem of you were taken as a first round pick. You're
Because
not
you're
a
a
first
tackle.
round pick.
No,
I had a
he's not.
third round grade on the guy,
Yeah.
but he goes in the first round because somebody wanted to look like the smartest man
John
in the room,
Gruden.
and it didn't work
Chucky.
out. But overall, I think that them claiming all those guys kind of signals where their roster is. Now, I think they do have a couple guys here and there. They have Pringle as well, the speedster. Here's the problem: Pringle's nursing in a hamstring.
Yep.
He might not even play. We'll see what happens there. I think there's a lot of interesting questions that go into this, Jason, and it makes me ask you this: what is the 49ers and Bears' biggest advantage? So, what's the 49ers' biggest advantage against the Bears?
Our entire roster. No. Well, I mean, think about it, but like you just said, they claim 6 players. So after a month of camp, they're like, damn, those 6 guys are better than these 6 guys that we have. That's a ninth of your roster, and you're like, oh God, we're that bad that these guys are an improvement. Like, so I'm kind of making a joke, but I'm kind of not though. Like, there's a giant chasm in talent here that Tom Brady couldn't overcome. Like, just our defense, if they score more than 17 points, I'm gonna be pissed off.
I think that the 49ers' biggest advantage is that they have absolute stars at certain positions. I mean, when you look at Trent Williams, you don't have that on the Bears. Like, there's no Trent Williams. Khalil Mack is gone, right? There's none of those big names. I think there's a couple pass rushers for the Bears that are pretty good. But when you look at it, there's just that name is not there. You know who Fields is. You know who a couple of guys are. But other than that, the 49ers have just those big names between Bosa, and Trent Williams.
At every level, they have
every position. Deebo Samuel,
a stud.
Yeah, they do. I mean, and they go on. They got Charvarius Ward. They have Emmanuel Mosley playing at a high level. I think it's one of those interesting things where you're right. The 49ers' depth and their overall roster seems to be better than the Bears. Now you have to go out there and prove it. Last year, the 49ers roster was better than a lot of teams that they played, but they weren't able to execute early on in the season, and they lost some football games. But one thing that's going to happen, Jason, could this actually overcome the 49ers' advantage? And that's that Justin Fields wants revenge against the 49ers. Darnell Mooney said Justin Fields is not happy the 49ers passed him up and went with Trey Lance. What do you feel about Justin Fields? Because it was just Halloween. Everyone remembers last year that Justin Fields did make some plays against the 49ers, especially with his legs. They allowed him to complete underneath passes. I'm going to be breaking down all of the Bears film because I'm doing like a thing for Patreon, but I'm super excited about getting even into more Fields because he had a pretty good preseason. You think he's poised for this revenge game?
I mean, we should probably define the idea of a revenge game. Will he come in and maybe outplay Trey? Maybe have a higher completion percentage than Trey? He might. But, I mean, it's not like they're going to have any chance of actually winning the game. Now, I will say that pre-draft, the guy I wanted at 12 to 8 range was Justin. Like, I watched him enough at the Ohio State University that you must say that's what I've been told.
Okay.
You can't just say Ohio State. You must say the Ohio State. I watched him in big games. I watched him against LSU's and Clemson's and stuff, and he played really well. Like in those games, he played really well. So I thought that he would. And if you watched all, because remember all the hype about, ooh, there's Kyle and there's John. When you watched the two of them talking to Justin, it looked like they really had a really good rapport and really good back and forth. I thought that's who, and then especially when they made the trade, I thought they were going up until literally the morning of the draft. I thought they were going up to get him.
Yeah,
but there's going to be no revenge factor. His team is garbage.
Well, I think there might be a revenge factor in his own mind.
Yeah.
Right? It's the Randy Moss thing. All these guys pass me up.
Mentally.
I'm going to go out there and prove it. I think that's a good attitude to have for Justin Fields. I have no problems with the way that he's going to go about it.
Absolutely.
But I'm with you on that. I did think Justin Fields was a real target of the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan having a pre-relationship with them made sense as well. So I think that Justin Fields probably even felt he was going to be the 49ers decision.
Yep.
The problem was there was lots of people that thought they were going to be the 49ers decision. There was running backs who, like Najee Harris, who thought they were going to be the decision at 12. When the 49ers went up, they made a decision that they needed to get a guy that they were afraid other teams were going to take. I think the Atlanta Falcons were looking to take Trey Lance, and I think Carolina was as well. That's why they pivoted and went with a doop-de-doo at quarterback. But I think that Justin Fields is going to want revenge in this game. But the way the 49ers can go in there and handle it, they learned a lot last year from what they did. I think D'Amico Ryans is ready for this game. He's going to get after it. And I think these 49ers defensive players are going to want to go shut Justin Fields down for what happened last year. And don't think that the players don't understand what this would mean for Trey Lance to win not only his first game, but also to win a game against Justin Fields as far as, the way that they're positioned and the way people talk about it.
So do you expect us to have a spy on him at all times?
No, I think it'll be occasional. Really? Here's why. Of course, I'm giving away secrets, Jason. You're making me give away secrets for later on conversations, but I won't
be here for that conversation, so
I do
have to ask it now.
Yeah, I do believe that the way they go about it is similar to the way that you handled a guy like Russell Wilson. So you're going to have certain blitz gaps, and you're going to run in certain lanes to keep this guy locked up. What you're going to want to do is it's all about pass rush lanes, and it's all about blitzing strategically. Last year, they tried to make Justin Fields complete passes consistently, and he proved he can. If you're going to give him that space, he can go out there and complete 65 to 70% of his passes. So now you have to approach it a different way. And the way you do it is by disguising coverage and then bringing blitzes, but bringing them in a way that it doesn't create run lanes. So taking away those run lanes is going to be the most important for this defense, and I think that's what D'Amico's going to do. An aggressive style defense, get in your face, and they're going to put pressure on Justin Fields and make him make plays. I think that's how you go beat a young quarterback, especially a guy who is looking for revenge, because if he's got that mindset that he's going to go out there and try to
overly aggressive too.
Bingo. So that's where we're at with all of that.
Force a throw or two, and Mr. Womack might be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, there's a lot of guys. People like Talanoa Hufanga is a playmaker.
Yes, he is too.
So there's going to be guys making plays. Let's see if the 49ers can continue that turnover trend as well.
Certainly hope so, because that'll take a lot of.
Here's a question for you. What's the 49ers' biggest weakness? The weakness that the Chicago Bears might be able to take advantage of?
The only thing that they can potentially have, I'd say two. One is if their defense can come up with some complex blitz scheme that might confuse Trey a little bit, would be one thing, and then just the inexperience in the middle of our O-line. Other than that, there's really nothing that the Bears have the talent or the coaching staff to actually do.
Yeah, that's where it kind of coincides, right? Yeah. It's Eberflus is the defensive coordinator. He played against the 49ers last year.
He ain't got Buckner and Shaq too, though. So
he doesn't. But he's got
a lot of talent.
He's got a certain skill set, right? He understands what their 49ers want to do on offense. He's going to try to bring like you said, the pressure. And when you have an inexperienced offensive line, them being able to pick up blitzes and also be able to kind of pass guys off is going to be something that's important. And even though these guys are well equipped, these guys understand Forrester's been taking them through it. You still see at times they don't have that chemistry maybe right now. Now we'll see what happens if they do have a Mike McGlinchey and a Trent Williams there to help guide those young guards as well. I think Brendel will do fine as far as understanding what is supposed to happen, but they got to go out there and execute. You're right. The offensive line against that pass rush / blitzing package is going to be interesting, but if 49ers run game gets going, it might alleviate all that and change that up. So I think it's one of those things where you're right. That's a weakness. It's probably the one that the 49ers have most glaring, which at any point in this season, if it becomes a non-weakness or a non-story,
it's going to be bad for the NFL.
Bingo. It's bad for everyone else.
I think we'll see more Jeff Wilson because his ability to help
pick up.
Yeah.
I think in third down, I've kind of thought he was going to be the third down back all the way back when we did our training camp battle videos.
Yeah.
A lot of people gave pushback like, no, JaMychal Hasty's that guy. I honestly thought it was going to be Jeff Wilson Jr. Because my belief was the way him and Elijah Mitchell catch the ball in the backfield, they can both split the third down back role. All the while, both of them are good receivers, both are good blockers. I think it just gave the 49ers more advantages. Have those two guys get most of the carries.
Yeah.
And then whoever's dressed between Jordan Mason and TDP, let them handle short yardage situations. I think that's the best situation for the Niners. Because I think early in the season, they're going to want Elijah Mitchell to be about 12 to 15 carries. They're going to want to make sure they protect him. So Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to pick up that other 6 to 8 carries. And then the short yardage ones for Mason or TDP.
I agree. I don't want to see back there, not because he can't do it, because I saw last year he did a pretty good job. I just don't want him to take unnecessary hits.
Yeah,
because he's proven that he has a little potential for injury, and our offense is a lot better with him back there.
Yeah,
not.
And there's always the opportunity for Kyle Shanahan to be like, I'm going to sprinkle in some Deebo Samuel right now on third down, and him be the third down back. And he's good for 2 to 3 per game opportunities to actually carry the ball in the backfield. I think we're going to see him a handful of times in the backfield.
I think so too.
I think they're going to run some option looks. I think they're going to match him up against linebackers. They started doing that in the playoffs last year. He'll line up in the backfield and they'd match him up against a linebacker, which is him against a linebacker is a good situation. So Jason, it's come that time in the show where we get to go over the game prediction. I want to know who you think is going to win this football game. This is going to be all about you. I'm not going to give my prediction. I'm going to wait until the game preview show for that. But this is about you right now, and I'm very interested to see how you got this game.
Wow, I'm definitely going to be taking the Niners minus the points for sure. There's no way that they won't cover that one. I got San Francisco somewhere in a 31 to 38 to like.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying 31 to 30.
That's how many our offense is going to score.
Wow.
I think the Bears get somewhere like 9 to 14 tops.
Okay, since you said 31 to 38, I think I want to ask you this because that's kind of a high score, right, for this offense. Why exactly do you think 49ers with young quarterback Trey Lance are able to score 31 to 38 points? We just talked about 4 tight ends, 4 big running backs, 10 offensive linemen. Is the run game for the Niners going to get going that much, or is this offense just that much better than the Bears defense?
All of the above, and I think too that because the running game gets going, I see Ayuk and Gray with a couple huge gains off play action too that will either go all the way for a touchdown or set up an easy first and goal type thing too.
Oh, I like it. So Jason comes through with the score prediction. Of course, you can catch mine on the game preview show that comes out later this week on the channel. Of course, that was going to come out on Thursday. Game preview show on Thursday. Content every which way you can possibly think from right here on YouTube or on traditional platforms if you're listening through an audio version, or over on Patreon where you can catch Slightly Offsides and shows like that. Face Off coming back, but this time on Patreon. I think it's going to be super exciting. Everyone, make sure you hop over to Patreon where you can get those shows, plus film breakdowns, and then right here on YouTube, a multitude of shows all throughout the week talking 49ers versus Bears. Can't wait for it, Jason. We've made it to that season. We've made it to the regular season. It's here. You heard it from Jay Hill. The 49ers are going to win in impressive fashion and put down this whole revenge possible thing for Justin Fields.
I think so, and I would bet we get at least 4 sacks too.
Ooh, 4 sacks! I love that.
And probably at least two or 3 turnovers.
Heard it here first. So Jay Hill's all over this. Defense coming through big, offense coming through big. You came through big on this episode. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. It's going to be a fun week of football. Hope you guys are all excited. And we'll catch you next week where we'll be talking about this exact game, what happened, the fallout from the 49ers versus Bears, and then looking forward to 49ers versus Seattle in the home opener. Hope you'll join us again next week for that. But once again, stuff all throughout the week on the channel, stuff over on Patreon. Hope you guys enjoy it. Catch you guys on the next one.